This world was built around saintesses. They were women blessed by Yaldobo, the god who stood above every nation. Their prayers became miracles. Their miracles became magic. Their magic became law, wealth, war, healing, and faith. A land with many saintesses became powerful. A land without them became weak. Kings bowed to them. Armies protected them. Churches worshipped them. Common people feared them and praised them at the same time. The saintess bloodline had one rule that never changed. A saintess only gave birth to daughters. For centuries, no son had ever been born from a saintess. Because of that, the saintess village became sacred. It was the place where the pure line began. It was ruled by women who believed they carried the will of God inside their bodies. Saren ruled that village. She was old, feared, and obeyed. Her words were treated as law. To the village, purity mattered more than mercy. Order mattered more than truth. A child who broke that order could not be allowed to exist. That was why the room fell silent when Orline gave birth. The child in her arms was not a girl, he was a boy. He had black hair like his mother. His eyes were red, like fresh blood. His body was small and weak, but the moment he cried, the prayer lamps in the room shook. A faint light moved across his skin and vanished before most people understood what they had seen. Saren understood enough. A boy born from a saintess was impossible. If the village accepted him, their sacred history would crack. If the world learned of him, every power built on saintess blood would ask the same question. Why had God allowed a son to be born? Saren chose the easiest answer. The child was a curse. She ordered the baby killed. She ordered Orline silenced too. To her, the mother who gave birth to him had already stained the village. Saber refused. At that time, Saber was still one of the strongest saintesses alive. She was not gentle, but she knew the weight of saintess law. Killing a saintess was the greatest sin. Killing a newborn child was worse than fear. Saren did not care. The old chief only cared that the village remained clean. Orline understood what would happen if she stayed. She took the baby and ran into the storm. Rain covered her footprints. Blood and childbirth had weakened her body. Still, she climbed the mountain path with the baby pressed to her chest. She did not run, because she believed she could escape forever. She ran because she needed one chance to choose her son over the village. Saber followed her. She found Orline collapsed under the rain. Orline was shaking, but her arms still covered the child. She begged for his life. She knew Saren would erase him the moment he was taken back. Saber wanted to help, but wanting was not enough. If she openly protected the boy, the whole village would turn against her. The church would call her a traitor. The kingdom would hunt her. Saren would twist the law until there was no place left for the child to hide. Orline made the choice for her. She raised her hand. Saber reacted by instinct. A flaming arrow formed and struck Orline before Saber realized the trap. Orline had taken the blow on purpose. A dying saintess could leave one final prayer. It was not a request. It was an order carved into the soul of another saintess. Refusing it brought divine punishment. With her last strength, Orline named the baby Toru. She placed her final prayer on Saber. Saber had to protect him. She had to raise him. She had to let him live. Then Orline died in the rain. Saber returned to the village with the baby. She told Saren what had happened. She had killed Orline. She had also received Orline's final prayer. That meant Toru could not be killed. Saren raged when Saber placed the child in her arms. Saber did not stay to argue. She had to go to the Seraph Grand Temple and accept judgment for killing a saintess. So the only boy ever born in the saintess village was left in Saren's care. Saren could not break the prayer directly, but she could twist it. The prayer said Toru had to live. It did not say he had to be loved. It did not say he had to be treated as family. Saren took the baby into her house and let the village believe she was only obeying a cursed command. That was how Toru's life began. He was not raised as Orline's son. He was raised as a stain that had to be hidden. By the time Toru turned 8, he understood his place. His life was miserable. He slept in a storage shed behind Saren's house. His bed was a torn mat. His blanket was thin and dirty. Farming tools, cleaning supplies, broken jars, and old boxes filled the space around him. In winter, the shed froze. In summer, the air became heavy and sour. Every morning, Saren woke him with a kick. He cleaned the house. He carried water. He made breakfast. He did every task no one else wanted to touch. Saren lived with her daughter Olive and her granddaughter Ellie. All three were saintesses. Saren ruled the village. Olive could read traces from anything she touched. Food, cloth, wood, and even old dust told her what had happened around them. Ellie was Toru's age, but she already controlled lightning well enough to use it without killing him. That was the point. She knew how much pain his body could take. In this village, every woman had power. Toru was the only exception. Every morning, Olive checked the food before anyone ate. She touched the plates and confirmed whether Toru had stolen even one bite. He never did. He knew what would happen if he tried. His food came later. Scraps, peels, burnt edges, old rice. Anything the others did not want. Saren called that mercy. The village kids were no kinder. Ellie used lightning on him when she was bored. Noelle used cold magic, and watched how long his fingers took to move again. Sylphie used him as a practice target for martial arts. Astral made medicines and poisons from plants and needed someone weak enough to test them on. They were called his childhood friends. The word meant nothing. They did not hurt him in the same way every day. That would have bored them. Each of them used him for something different. Ellie tested control. She wanted to know how much lightning caused shaking, how much caused collapse, and how much left him awake enough to hear her laugh. Noelle tested fear. She liked the moment his body stiffened before the cold reached him. Sylphie tested force. She practiced punches, kicks, throws, and wind strikes. If Toru fell too quickly, she complained. If he endured too long, she hit harder. Astral tested change. She gave him bitter, crushed herbs and strange mixtures. She watched his breathing, his sweat, his fever, and his pain with calm eyes. Olive noticed something before the others did. Toru survived too much. A normal boy should have broken faster. A normal boy should have died from one of Astral's mistakes or Noelle's careless freezing. A normal boy should not have recovered from years of lightning and blows with only herbs and rest. Olive touched his wrist once and found a strange trace inside him. It was faint, too faint to call power, but it was there. Mana, Olive told Saren. Saren did not look pleased. She looked afraid for one brief second. She buried that fear under anger and ordered the girls to keep hurting him. If his body held something dangerous, then pain would teach him to lower his head before he ever learned how to use it. So Toru learned silence. He learned how to fall without breaking his teeth. He learned where to stand in the house so Saren would not notice him. He learned which floorboards creaked. He also learned to read. Old books were stored in the shed because no one cared about them. Some were records from outside the village. Toru cleaned them, hid them, and read at night under his blanket. Those books became his first teachers. They taught him that the outside world was not only saintesses and village walls. There were towns, roads, guilds, armies, kingdoms, and mines. The word mines stayed with him. One old book had a picture of men working underground. They carried tools. They were covered in dirt. Their faces were tired, but they stood shoulder to shoulder. They ate together. They worked together. Toru stared at that picture longer than any prayer book. He did not dream of becoming a hero. He wanted a mine. He wanted hard work, real food, and a place where other men stood beside him. He wanted older men to teach him rough skills. He wanted friends who did not smile when he was hurt. It was a small dream. For Toru, it was everything. The forest near the village became his only safe place. Saintesses rarely entered it. They had magic for healing, so herbs had little value to them. Toru had no healer, so he learned the forest by need. He knew where the spring was. He knew which plants helped wounds and which ones numbed pain. One day, after another punishment, he reached the spring and treated himself as usual. He crushed herbs into paste. He wrapped his arm. He washed dirt from his face. He stared into the water and saw a tired boy looking back. He was 8 years old. His eyes already looked older. That was when Saber appeared behind him. She no longer looked like the sacred saintess from the village stories. Scars across her arms and legs, and an eye patch over one eye. Her body looked shaped by battle, not prayer. She looked at the herbs first, then she looked at his wounds. She understood enough without asking many questions. Saber had returned from imprisonment. The village feared her name but did not welcome her back. She had killed a saintess. She had survived the Grand Temple's judgment. She had come back carrying guilt, anger, and an old promise. She told Toru that he needed power, not someday. But now, he had 7 years until adulthood. At 15, he would leave the village. Until then, she would train him in secret. He would not train like a saintess. He would train like someone who had to survive saintesses. Toru did not trust her at first. No adult had ever helped him without wanting something. No saintess had ever looked at him and seen a person. Saber did not speak gently enough to make him feel safe. That helped more than kindness would have. She did not pretend his life was fine. She did not tell him to endure for the village. She asked what he felt toward the girls who hurt him. Toru had buried the answer for years because anger was dangerous. Anger made his eyes lift. Anger made his hands shake. But in the forest, with Saber watching him, the buried answer finally rose. Hatred. Saber accepted that answer. Her rule was simple. If someone hit him once, he had to return twice as much when the time came. He had to do it because people who only endured forever were turned into tools. Toru accepted her training. The next day, he returned to the forest after chores. Saber was waiting near the spring. She treated his injuries with rough hands. She packed herbs into cuts, wrapped cloth tight, and made every bandage look messy enough to avoid suspicion. Saren would notice clean treatment. She would not notice pain hidden under dirt. After that, Saber gave him some food. Toru ate too quickly. Tears came before he could stop them. Saber did not mock him. She let him eat and told him the truth of his birth. Orline was his mother. She had been a saintess. She had loved him from the moment he was born. Saren had called him a curse because he was a boy born from a bloodline that had never produced sons. Orline had died protecting him. A final prayer had forced the village to keep him alive. Saber did not tell him everything. She did not tell him that her own attack had ended Orline's life. She did not tell him how many times she had replayed that night in prison. That part of her feared Toru would hate her if he learned the full truth. Toru listened quietly. The truth hurt, but not in the way Saber expected. He had already known he was unwanted, and the village hated him. Learning that his mother had loved him did not heal anything at once, but it placed one clean stone inside the mud of his life. Someone had held him and chosen him. That mattered. Saber asked what he wanted after leaving. Toru answered with the dream he had never said aloud. He wanted to become a miner. He wanted to live among men. He wanted work, food, and a place where he was not the only one of his kind. She understood that a small dream could be stronger than a grand one. Revenge could burn hot and vanish. A place to live could keep a person moving for years, so she built his training around escape. He would become a hunter. He would hide, watch, track, strike first, and vanish before stronger enemies controlled the fight. His main weapon would be a bow. He would also learn knives, traps, body movement, weak points, and close combat. If enemies thought he was helpless at close range, he would punish that mistake. Saber also made one thing clear. Saintesses were not unbeatable. They were powerful, but many depended too much on that power. They trusted magic to solve everything. They looked down on men. They ignored dirty tricks, weak footing, bad sightlines, and fear. Toru would learn to use all of those. The first real training began the next day. She drew red marks across his arms, legs, chest, back, and neck. The marks sank into his skin and vanished. It was a body-forging seal. It had 3 purposes. It would crush his body with constant weight. It would force him to learn control over every muscle. It would hide the growth of his mana from the village. Toru did not understand how cruel that was until Saber activated it. His body fell at once. The ground pressed against his face while Saber stood above him and watched. She did not help him up. She made him move his strength one part at a time. Fingers first, then wrists, then elbows, then knees and feet. Toru failed again and again. The seal did not care about effort. It only responded to control. Hours passed. His body shook. Sweat covered him. More than once, he almost lost consciousness. Every time his mind slipped, Saber reminded him of his dream. That word reached him. Toru stood before sunset. His legs shook so badly he almost fell again, but he stood. Saber ended the lesson, but she did not remove the seal. That was part of the training. From that day on, the weight would stay with him. If he could survive under that hidden pressure, his body would become something the village could not read correctly. Toru walked back to the shed with the herb basket in his arms. Every step hurt. Saren punished him for being late. Ellie added lightning because she wanted to see him fall. The seal made everything worse, but something strange happened inside the pain. His mana moved. It was tiny, rough, and wild, but it reacted before his mind did. Ellie noticed that he did not collapse as fast as before. Olive noticed the trace when she touched the floor after he dragged himself away. Saren noticed the look in his eyes. None of them understood the full reason. Saber's seal hid the shape of his growth. To them, he was still only a cursed boy who endured a little more than expected. That mistake became the first crack in the village's control. Toru returned to the shed that night and lay on the torn mat. His stomach was almost empty, but his mind was different. For the first time, tomorrow was not only another day to survive, it was one day closer to his dream of leaving the Saintess village behind. 7 years passed under the hidden seal. Toru grew inside pain. The seal made every movement heavy. Even sleep became a fight because the pressure never fully left his body. Saber never removed it. That was the point. The village still mistreated him, but Saber changed the meaning of it. Ellie's lightning became resistance training. Noelle's cold became control training. Sylphie's blows became impact training. Astral's poisons became survival training. Saren's hunger and chores became endurance training. He stopped letting every wound become only suffering. Every attack gave him information. Ellie needed rhythm before stronger lightning. Noelle's cold slowed her own fingers if she used too much at once. Sylphie's body leaned before she changed direction. Astral's mixtures always carried a smell before the worst effects began. The girls thought they were playing with him. Toru was studying them. Saber made sure of that. Every night in the forest, she asked what he noticed. She did not ask how much it hurt. Pain mattered less than information. If Toru remembered only fear, he remained prey. If he remembered timing, distance, habits, and weak points, he became a hunter. That lesson shaped him. He learned the bow first. The first bow was simple and cruel to use. It tore at his fingers. Under the seal, even drawing it felt impossible. Saber made him shoot anyway. At first, he missed everything: fruit, stones, birds. Saber did not praise near hits. A miss was a miss. An arrow that almost saved his life was the same as an arrow that did nothing. So Toru kept shooting. He learned wind by watching leaves. He learned how sound arrived late compared to sight. His eyes became strange before his body caught up. At 10 years old, he could notice a spider thread moving across the spring from far away. At 11, he could count birds inside a tree before they moved. At 12, he could read footprints from a distance without bending down. At 13, he could follow a falling leaf through fog. At 14, he could shoot through gaps most adults would not even see. Saber noticed the change. His sight was not normal mana enhancement. A saintess could sharpen her senses, but Toru's eyes did more than sharpen. They separated the world into lines, distances, and movement before he fully thought about them. He saw the opening before he understood why it was an opening. Saber called that his strongest weapon. She gave him a compound bow when his body became ready for it. It was heavier than a normal bow, but its pulleys let him draw more force than his size should allow. Later, she rebuilt it into a stranger weapon. It could fold into a rod. Hidden blades could lock near his wrists. The bow was no longer only for distance. Toru also learned knives. That training was uglier. Saber taught him where bodies failed: neck, jaw, eyes, arteries. A person who wanted to live had to know when to run, when to hide, and when to end the fight before pride ruined everything. Toru hid an anatomy book under the shed floor. At night, he studied bodies by weak candlelight. He learned bones, organs, nerves, and blood paths. He imagined Ellie, Noelle, Sylphie, and Astral in those diagrams, and hated himself for feeling both fear and relief. He wanted revenge. He also wanted to leave. Saber never let one erase the other. She reminded him that his dream was not the village. His dream was beyond it. A hunter who turned around too soon could be trapped by old anger. He had to escape first. He could settle debts later if they stood in his way. Toru kept the mining dream in his mind. The picture from the old book became worn from being touched too many times. The men working inside it did not know him. Still, they became the shape of freedom. He imagined reaching them. He imagined someone older teaching him how to hold a pickaxe properly. He imagined eating at a rough table with people who looked like him. He imagined sleeping in a bunk without fearing the door. That dream kept him human. The village noticed his changes, but not all at once. Saren saw that his back straightened faster after being hit. Ellie saw that her lightning no longer dropped him as easily. Noelle saw that he no longer trembled before the cold touched him. Sylphie saw his guard becoming cleaner. Astral saw his body rejecting poisons faster. Olive saw the most. Her trace-reading magic told her that Toru's mana was moving in circles now. It no longer sparked like a sick flame. It flowed through him with purpose. But each time she tried to read deeper, something heavy blocked her: the seal. Olive could not see it clearly. Saber had hidden it under rough magic and years of injury. To Olive, it looked like natural damage from abuse. That made her hesitate. Saren wanted him broken before he understood himself. Olive suggested a different path. They should let him grow a little longer. If his mana became useful, the village could study it. If his body became stronger, the village could use him for harder labor. If he developed false hope, crushing it later would teach him his true place forever. Saren accepted that plan. His childhood friends accepted it for their own reasons. That was their mistake. Toru did not know the full plan, but he felt the change. Their cruelty became sharper and more observant. They were not only hurting him anymore, they were measuring him. Saber understood before he did. She changed his training again. From then on, he learned to lie with his body. He had to look weaker than he was. He had to stumble one step later than needed. He had to hide clear eyes behind lowered lashes. That was harder than fighting. Saber called it survival. A hunter did not show every fang before the trap closed. At 15, Toru no longer looked like the boy in the shed. Poor food kept him lean, but not weak. His hands had scars from bowstrings and knives. His eyes had become calm in a way that made the girls uneasy. The coming-of-age ceremony approached. Every saintess girl who turned 15 that year would stand before the village, the church, and the saintess kingdom. If chosen, they could leave the village with honor. They could join the faith, serve the kingdom, or rise into a greater life. Ellie, Noelle, Sylphie, and Astral cared deeply about it. New cloth arrived. Jewelry traders came. Tailors worked late. The village became busy, bright, and restless. Toru heard almost nothing directly. He learned by watching. Merchants brought more guards than usual. The temple floors were cleaned twice a day. Saren spoke to visiting messengers behind closed doors. Some names appeared again and again. Rosa, of the Saintess faith, Seraph, of the Alexandros Saintess kingdom, and Yaldobo. The last name changed the whole village. God himself would descend for the ceremony. The girls became almost feverish with excitement. To them, Yaldobo was the only man above all women. He was not treated like the men in the outside world. He was worshipped as the father of saintesses and the source of their place in history. Toru felt sick each time he heard it. Men were tools, workers, soldiers, or breeding stock in many lands, but Yaldobo stood above them all because he had given women power. Toru did not know what to feel about a god like that. 5 days before the ceremony, Noelle found him near the forest path. She was dressed in fine clothes for fitting. Her hair was arranged neatly. Her smile was soft enough to fool someone who did not know her. She touched his arm and released cold. It was meant to be casual, a small cruelty hidden under a greeting. Toru's body resisted too well. The ice spread, but his mana moved fast. For one short moment, his eyes changed. He looked at her and saw the opening: neck, jaw, knee, throat, distance. He could kill her. The thought was clear enough to frighten him, Noelle saw it. Her smile disappeared. She grabbed his throat and lifted him with cold magic. The air around his neck froze. His back hit a tree hard enough to force gasp into his mouth. She understood at last that his mind had changed. She told him the village had known about his training. They had watched because it amused them. They had believed his effort meant nothing beside a true saintess. They wanted him to reach the edge of hope before proving the gap could never close. She also revealed Saren's decision. After the ceremony, Toru would no longer belong only to Saren's house. He would belong to the whole village. Any saintess could order him. Any home could use him. His life would become labor without end. The forest would be taken from him. His privacy would end. His dream would be crushed before he stepped outside the village. Noelle left after that. Sylphie crossed his path later and made the truth worse. She did not threaten him with secrecy. She spoke openly because she believed he could do nothing. Even weaker saintesses, in her mind, stood above him. Toru returned to the shed with one number fixed in his head: 5 days. Saber listened without surprise. She had expected the village to move once the ceremony came close. The village had allowed Toru to grow because it believed growth without freedom was still control. It planned to harvest his strength like any other tool, so Saber gave him the final test. He did not need to defeat her. He had to land one hit. The test began 3 days before the ceremony. Saber stood near the spring. His bow, arrows, knives, and gear lay nearby. She carried no weapon. That made her more dangerous, not less. Toru attacked without warning. He threw the herb basket first to block sight. He reached for the bow and changed it into rod form instead of shooting. He threw an arrow by hand toward her face. He closed from the side. He released the rod mid-swing and used his leg as the real strike. Saber avoided each layer. She moved as if she had read the fight before it began. Toru changed distance. He used stones, one high, one angled toward a tree. He forced her eyes to track short paths and false rebounds. The stones struck bark, roots, and rock, turning the space around her into delayed lines of attack. Saber avoided them too. She stepped forward and pressed him. Toru retreated. His breathing grew rough. His face showed frustration. Saber saw the shape of weakness and advanced one more step. That was when the real attack landed. A pebble dropped onto her shoulder. It had been thrown high at the start, before the basket, before the rod. It had spent the whole fight outside attention, falling slowly into the one place Toru had guided her to stand. The hit was small. It was still a hit. Saber accepted the result. Toru had passed. She named his gift clearly after that: Hawkeye. It was not only a sharp sight, it was a battle sight. He could turn a whole field into a map if he had enough time to look. Saber warned him not to mistake that for victory over saintesses. He still lacked raw power. Against strong saintesses, he had to win before they understood the fight. If he stood in front of them and traded blows, he would die. Toru accepted it. He had never wanted a fair fight. Saber also noticed something else during the test. When Toru focused on her, his mana did not only sharpen his sight, it brushed against her life as if measuring something inside her. It was faint, but real. For 1 second, Saber felt as if his power had looked at her and judged whether she could be changed. She hid her reaction. She knew more about the god Yaldobo's plans than she had ever told Toru. The ceremony day arrived. Saren locked Toru inside the shed from the outside. She ordered him to stay hidden until the ceremony ended. The village could not let guests see him. A cursed boy would stain the sacred day. Toru had already packed. He owned almost nothing: a few old books, spare clothes, his worn mining picture, some herbs, a knife Saber had given him in secret. He tore apart the old sleeping mat and wrapped everything inside. He waited. Outside, the village filled with voices. Girls laughed. Women walked toward the temple. Toru listened until the sounds shifted away from Saren's house. The shed area became quiet. He used Hawkeye through a crack in the wall. Glass, water, window corners. Reflections gave him pieces of the village. No one stood near the shed. The nearest guard had left to watch Yaldobo arrive. A cheer rose from the temple. That was the signal. Toru broke out. He climbed through the window, crossed the roof of Saren's house, and looked once toward the great temple. The crowd there was thick. Saintesses, priests, nobles, and visitors all faced the same shining figure at the front. Yaldobo had arrived. Toru felt a strange pull in his chest. If Yaldobo was the father of saintesses and Orline was his mother, then that god might be his father too. The thought lasted only a moment. A father who never came did not matter. Toru turned away and ran. He left the house. He left the village without looking back again. Saber waited in the forest. A large travel bag sat at her feet. She had prepared everything: travel clothes, strong boots, a leather vest, clothes, food, a map, a new compound bow made from orichalcum alloy, a quiver filled with arrows, notes for special arrowheads he could have made later. She also gave him money, platinum coins, more money than Toru had ever imagined holding. Saber warned him to hide it well, exchange it carefully, and never let greedier people smell wealth on him. The outside world had more men, but it also had thieves, slavers, nobles, and fools with sharp knives. Toru memorized the map. He would leave through the forest, follow it north to Yanus, and move from there toward the mining regions. The route was not safe, but it avoided normal saintess patrols. Before he left, Toru asked why Saber had done all of this. She did not give the full truth. She only admitted that if he learned everything one day, he might see her as an enemy. Toru did not understand. He still thanked her. He held out his hand because that was how men in books greeted each other. Saber ignored it. She pulled him close, held him tightly, and kissed his forehead. Her arms were rough, but they shook slightly. It was the first warm embrace Toru could remember receiving from someone who knew the truth of him. She removed the seal. The change hit him at once. For 7 years, his body had lived under a mountain. The mountain vanished. His limbs became light. His breath opened. His mana surged through him. This was his true body. Saber had not only trained him, she had held him back, so no one could measure what he was becoming. Toru lowered his head to her. He owed her too much to speak cleanly. He thanked her with everything he had. Saber sent him away before either of them weakened. Toru ran. He moved faster than he had ever moved in his life. Every step carried him away from the village and toward the old dream. He ran until the trees began to thin and sunlight appeared ahead. While Toru escaped, the ceremony reached its center. The great temple was full. The new 15-year-old saintesses stood in fine clothes. Nobles and visiting saintesses watched from their places. Yaldobo stood above them all. He looked gentle. That made his words more dangerous. He praised the saintesses for growing strong. He acknowledged their faith, their history, and their service. The temple nearly broke from joy. To be seen by him was enough to make some girls cry. Then he changed the future. He declared that he would stop increasing the saintesses' power without limit. The temple froze. Yaldobo explained that a world ruled only by gifts from God would never mature. People had turned miracles into hierarchy. They had turned blessing into ownership. They had used his power to decide who mattered and who did not. He would not keep feeding that system blindly. Saintesses would still be born, but he would no longer let the number and strength rise without judgment. Part of that authority had already been given away. It had been given to Orlean's son, Toru. Yaldobo named the skill placed in him saintess appointment. It was not a simple creation skill. It was authority. It could raise someone into a saintess through Toru's will, bond, and judgment. It could decide what kind of miracle took shape. It could create saintesses outside the old village, outside the church, and outside the kingdom's control. The temple lost its breath. The village saintesses understood first, the cursed child. The boy hidden in Saren's shed, the one they had beaten, starved, and mocked. He carried a divine authority that could change the world. Rosa, the high priestess of the saintess faith, stepped forward and used the cursed name from the old reports. Yaldobo's face changed. For the first time, the temple saw anger in God's eyes. He understood too late that Toru had not been protected. Orlean's son had been kept alive, but not saved. Yaldobo tried to sense him. Toru was already gone. That silence frightened the temple more than shouting would have. The ceremony ended in disorder. Saren rushed back to the shed. It was empty. Olive touched the bedding and read the traces. Toru had packed before the ceremony. He had watched the village empty. He had escaped the moment Yaldobo arrived. He had gone through the forest. Saren's rage filled the house, but fear sat beneath it. Toru was no longer only a hated boy. He was power. He was value. He was a weapon the village had failed to control. If the saintess kingdom gained him, it could shape future saintesses. If the church gained him, it could restore authority over the world. If enemies gained him, the whole saintess order could crack. If Toru kept himself free, he could choose women outside their control. That was the worst answer of all. Rosa moved faster than Saren. She declared that Toru's escape was not a village matter anymore. Every saintess had a duty to find him. Every church branch, village network, and kingdom agent had to listen for his name. Whoever captured him and delivered him safely would receive one great wish from the saintess faith. The order spread before sunset. At first, the announcement called it protection. Many saintesses heard it as a hunt. Ellie, Noelle, Sylphie, and Astral gathered after the failed ceremony. None of them had been chosen by the church or kingdom that day. Yaldobo's reveal had swallowed their moment. Their pride had been ignored because Toru existed. That made their thoughts twist. Sylphie wanted to beat him down again and prove his growth meant nothing. Astral wanted his body studied. A boy with mana, poison resistance, and divine authority was too rare to waste. Noelle wanted him locked somewhere cold and private, where no one else could take him and no one could hear him. Ellie wanted him back because she had always believed he belonged to her. Their direction became the same. They would chase him. Olive gave them the route after reading the traces. Toru had gone north. Yanus was the most likely first town. Saber's name never appeared in the trace clearly, but Olive felt an old heat around the escape path and understood enough to be careful. Saren ordered others ahead through transfer magic. The village had lost him once. It would not wait politely for him to disappear again. Toru knew none of this. He only knew the road ahead. By By late afternoon, he reached the vagabond road. It was narrow, dark, and half hidden under old trees. Saber had warned him that it was used by people who disliked official roads. That meant criminals, smugglers, slavers, and anyone else who wanted to travel without questions. To Toru, it still felt beautiful. It was outside the village. He walked for hours with the map in one hand and freedom beating in his chest. The forest was thick, but no wall stood behind him. For the first time, hunger came from travel instead of punishment. That almost made it pleasant. He hunted a snake with Hawkeye and cooked it over a small fire. The meat was tough, but it was his. He had found it. He laughed while eating. It sounded strange even to him. Later, he heard wagon wheels. Toru climbed into a tree and looked ahead. Several wagons had stopped on the road. Men moved around them. They handled horses, ropes, boxes, and cargo. One was tall and broad with hair around his mouth, a beard. Toru's chest tightened. He pulled out the old mining picture and compared it to the man ahead. It matched. Real men, not drawings. Toru cried before he could stop himself. He wiped his face, climbed down, and approached the wagons with more fear than he had felt during some fights. A saintess attack made sense to him. A man speaking to him did not. The men noticed him. The bearded man questioned why a boy was alone on the vagabond road. Toru could barely answer. The fact that a man had spoken to him like a person broke through him harder than pain. He cried again. The men became confused. Some thought they had scared him. Others joked awkwardly. Their rough voices only made him cry more because they were real. A woman interrupted the moment. She arrived dressed in loud clothes and jewelry, with a pipe in her mouth. Her name was Marjorie. She was a slave merchant. She was also a saintess. Toru disliked her immediately. She explained the road with pride. Bandits used it. People who traveled there without protection were either dangerous or merchandise. Toru still cared more about the men than her title. That insulted her. Marjorie attacked first. Vines burst from nearby trees and pots on the wagons. They shot toward Toru to bind him. She intended to capture him, sell him, and learn later why he had such strange eyes. Toru's mind cooled. Saber's training moved before fear could. He cut the first vines with his wrist blade, rolled under the next wave, and vanished into the trees. Marjorie kept her eyes forward and directed vines only where she could see movement. Toru circled behind her. He drew 2 arrows. He did not aim to kill, only to end the threat. Both arrows struck. Marjorie's arms were cut away below the elbows. For 1 second, she did not understand the shape of her own body. Then she screamed. The men rushed to her. They wrapped the wounds, threw supplies aside, and turned the wagons around. Toru stepped out to stop them, but they were already moving fast. His first meeting with men ended with them fleeing from him. That hurt more than he expected. 2 smaller wagons remained behind. Toru searched first and found clothes, cooking tools, and useful supplies. The second wagon was locked. He broke it open. Inside sat a girl with long black hair and empty eyes. She was around his age. She looked at him without fear. Her name was Hana. She believed Toru had bought her. Toru had no idea how to answer at first. Hana explained her situation without emotion. Her father had cut off one arm. Her mother had taken the other hand. Her younger brother had cut off her leg. After that, her family sold her to Marjorie. She spoke as if describing weather. Toru denied owning her. Hana saw it differently. Marjorie had abandoned the wagon. Toru had defeated Marjorie. By the ugly logic of the road, she now belonged to him. Toru rejected that idea at once. He asked what she planned to do if he left. Hana had no plan. If she stayed there, hunger or beasts would end her. If someone worse found her, her life would continue as property. To her, both results seemed similar. Toru understood that emptiness. He had seen it in his own reflection years ago. He introduced himself and explained his route. He was heading to Yanuz. Someday, he wanted to become a miner. Hana listened carefully. Something small moved behind her dead eyes when he said the word, someday. Toru decided to take her at least as far as Yanuz. He could not leave her in the wagon. Hana accepted and immediately made herself useful. She directed him to strip wood from the abandoned wagon. Under her guidance, he cut boards, shaped supports, wrapped leather, and built crude, temporary limbs. A wooden leg, a hook-like right arm, a simple left hand that could grip a little. Her instructions were precise, too precise for a helpless captive. When Toru asked, she only said that work like this had been part of her old life. He did not push. By sunset, Hana could stand. The wooden parts were ugly, but they worked. She bowed to Toru and offered her life for his use. He rejected that too, though he already understood. Words alone would not undo whatever had been carved into her. So he chose a simpler path. She could travel with him to Yanuz. She could teach him hunting and cooking. He would handle the parts of the work her body could not yet manage. After that, she could choose her future. Hana accepted the arrangement. Toru did not know yet that her future was not empty. It was buried under revenge. For now, they left the broken wagons behind and continued north together. Behind them, the saintess world had begun to move. Her steps were slow at first, but not helpless. She learned the weight of the wooden leg faster than Toru expected. That made him watch her more carefully. By evening, Hana left the road and moved toward the brush. Toru almost stopped her, but she knew where she was going. She had smelled water. A short walk later, they reached a river. Toru set the bags down and prepared a fire. He was used to surviving alone, but not traveling with someone else. That changed small things. He had to think about where Hana could sit. He had to place tools close enough for her to reach. He did not feel annoyed. It felt strange to have someone correct him without mocking him. He hunted fish with the bow. He brought them back with quiet pride. Hana stopped him before he cooked them wrong. She guided him through cleaning, salting, and roasting. The result tasted better than anything he had cooked alone. Toru understood that her knowledge was not small. It came from real life, not books. Hana could not feed herself well with the rough wooden parts. Toru held the food steady and let her eat at her own pace. She ate the fish cleanly, bones included. When he stared, she explained that wasting edible parts was foolish. That answer sounded too normal. For a moment, she did not look like a broken captive. She looked like a girl who had once lived a hard but practical life. After the meal, they improved the wooden limbs. Hana asked for a slimmer leg, a better hook, and a left hand that could grip. She also needed enough movement to handle private matters without help. Her face changed slightly when she admitted that. It was the first clear sign of shame Toru had seen from her. He did not make it worse. He worked carefully. The wagon wood was poor material, but Saber's training had made his hands steady. He shaped the leg, adjusted the straps, balanced the foot, strengthened the hook, and carved a simple left hand that could close around light things. Hana tested everything under the moonlight. The parts were still crude, but they gave her more control. She bowed to him again. Toru disliked the way she kept acting like a servant, but he did not know how to fix it yet. Telling her she was free did not make her feel free. Words alone could not repair a life. That night, Hana offered to keep watch. Toru did not trust that she could stay awake all night, but exhaustion won. He slept near the fire with the bow close to his hand. Morning came. Hana was still awake. Breakfast was already cooking. More fish. Toru looked at the river, then at her wooden hands. He could not understand how she had caught them. She gave a simple answer that explained nothing. He let it pass. After breakfast, she lifted the heavy bag before he could take it. The bag held tools, cookware, clothes, money, and supplies. She stood under the weight without shaking. That confirmed what Toru had already suspected. Hana had trained in martial arts. She admitted it without pride. The same training had led to the loss of her limbs. After that, she went quiet. Toru did not force the story open. He told her about his own style instead. He fought with a bow, hidden blades, knives, and body strengthening. He did not fight fairly. Fair fights were for people who had the strength to survive mistakes. Hana accepted that answer. A while later, Hawkeye caught movement far ahead. A giant boar was feeding on a dead deer in the road. It was huge, heavy, and dangerous. The distance was far enough that most people would not even see it clearly. Toru stopped. He prepared one of the stronger arrowheads Saber had packed. He strengthened his arms and back with mana, drew the bow, and aimed through Hawkeye. It struck the boar through the head. The beast dropped at once. Hana watched without emotion, but Toru could tell she had measured the shot. She understood now that he was not only lucky, his distance control was dangerous. They cut only what they could carry. The meat smelled harsh, so Hana used spices from the abandoned wagon supplies. Toru followed every instruction. He was starting to understand the value of having someone beside him who knew things he did not. He asked what she planned to do after Yanu's. Hana answered that she would follow his wishes. That answer was not enough. Toru explained his path. He would register as an adventurer. He would earn money. He would travel north. He would reach mining towns. One day, he would work in a mine. Maybe, if life allowed it, he would own one. The thought hit him harder than expected. His own mine, his own workers, his own place where men could eat and work without lowering their heads to saintess pride. He almost smiled too much. Hana noticed the dream before he fully said it. She said his goal was bigger than a job. Toru wanted to deny it, but the image had already taken root. Still, he returned to the problem in front of him. He told Hana that Yanu's could be the best place for her. He could give her money. She could buy proper artificial limbs. She could find shelter and choose a safer life. Hana asked if she was a burden. Toru answered honestly, she was. Not because he hated her. The road ahead would be dangerous. Saintesses were already hunting him. Her current limbs were weak. If danger came, she might die. Worse, he might make a bad choice trying to protect her. Hana's face changed. She asked whether a girl with missing limbs, no family, and no protection could truly live safely in a town ruled by saintesses and money. Toru had no clean answer. She did not want protection only. She wanted a place near him. She promised to be useful, but Toru felt something false under the words. He had seen emptiness in her. A person who no longer cared about living did not regain purpose in one day because someone showed basic kindness. Something else had moved inside her. Toru stopped walking and faced her. He made it clear that he would not take her farther unless she said the real reason. Hana finally broke her dead calm. Her real reason was revenge. Her family had cut her apart and sold her. She wanted to find them. She wanted to stand before them again. She wanted to finish the past with her own hand. The anger in her eyes was alive. Toru, understood her better after that. He wanted to run from his old life. Hana wanted to return to hers and destroy the chain still tied to her heart. Neither path was clean, but both were real. He agreed to help her, not immediately. First, they needed Yanus. First, they needed work, information, and proper gear. After that, her revenge would become part of their road. Hana thanked him with more feeling than she had shown until then. That night, they ate the boar meat. It tasted better than Toru expected. The next day, they left the forest. Walls appeared in the distance. Smoke rose from chimneys. Carts moved toward a gate. Yanus stood before them. Toru stopped walking. A real town with people, roads, shops, guards, and noise. More important than that, men stood at the gate. 2 male guards checked travelers. One had a tired face. The other looked younger and bored. Their armor was worn, but real. Toru almost cried again. He forced himself forward. The guard asked for the entry fee. Toru tried to answer, but his voice caught. The guard thought something was wrong with him. Hana handled the situation before it became worse. Men had to pay to enter. Women entered free. The rule made Toru's mood harden. Even outside the saintess village, the same shape remained. Women were treated as higher by default. Toru only had platinum coins. That caused another problem. The guards stared at the money and became suspicious. No normal boy carried platinum. One wondered if Toru served a high saintess. Another looked toward Hana, as if she might be the true owner. Hana stated that she traveled under Toru. That confused them more. The guards told Hana to enter first and exchange the money inside. She could enter without fee. Toru waited at the gate with every nerve awake. The men tried to speak with him. Toru wanted to ask them everything: how they lived, where they slept, whether mines nearby hired young workers. He asked almost none of it. He did learn one thing. Yanus was ruled by Prune, the saintess of cold wind. The guards called the town decent enough for men, but their tone carried defeat. Decent did not mean equal. It meant the rules were not as cruel as other places. Hana returned with exchanged coins. They paid the fee and entered. Yanus swallowed Toru at once. The streets were wide. Shops lined both sides. People shouted prices. Horses pulled carts. Adventurers carried weapons. Women in better clothes moved with confidence. Men moved faster and lowered their heads more often. It was not freedom, but it was larger than the cage. Toru's first decision was clear. Hana needed proper limbs. Before the smith, they went to the bank. Hana chose that stop because walking around with too much coin was foolish. Toru agreed once she explained it. The bank looked almost sacred. Stone walls, polished counters, clerks, iron machines, and guards made money feel like another kind of god. Toru opened an account. The clerk asked for his name and finger mark. Hana explained that the mark tied the account to his body. Toru pressed his finger where instructed. An iron machine processed the form and produced a hard card. His first bank card. He held it like a strange weapon. The platinum coins drew a brief change in the clerk's face, but he stayed professional. The money was deposited. Smaller coins were withdrawn. A passbook recorded the amount. Toru learned that he could use the account in other towns. That impressed him more than magic. After the bank, they went to a smithy. The owner was an older man. Toru almost forgot why he had come. To him, the smith looked like the future he wanted, a man who made useful things with his own hands. Hana kept him focused. The smith examined the wooden limbs and gave a blunt judgment. They were clever for emergency work, but poor for real use. He could make a better set by the next day, if paid well. Toru paid immediately. The smith measured Hana's remaining limbs and body balance. He did not pity her. He treated the work seriously. That seemed to matter to Hana. Their next stop was the Adventurer Guild. Toru registered first. The clerk was male, which made him happier than he wanted to show. The process was similar to the bank. He became an E-rank adventurer. E-rank work was simple: cleaning, carrying, basic labor. He asked if Hana wanted to register too, then remembered her missing fingers. He apologized before she could react. She did not blame him, but the silence stayed between them for a moment. They chose an inn near the smithy and guild. That night gave Toru more firsts than he could count. A real meal, a real bath, a real bed. He soaked in the bath until his head felt light. Dirt from the road, the village, and years of storage shed living seemed to loosen from his skin. When he returned to the room, Hana sat on the bed. Toru asked about her family again. Hana explained that they belonged to a wandering group. They moved from place to place and rarely stayed long. Finding them would take information, time, and luck. When she spoke of meeting them again, killing intent filled the room for 1 second. It vanished quickly. The next morning, after breakfast, Toru checked his weapons and made sure everything was ready. Hana said she would do what she could and try not to slow him down. Toru told her not to force herself. Then they stepped outside. Majorie waited outside the inn. Men stood behind her carrying potted plants. Toru understood the design at once. Without arms, Majorie's vine magic needed living plants, so they walked her weapons into battle for her. Majorie had found them faster than expected. That meant someone in town had already noticed the strange boy and limbless girl. Toru chose escape over battle. Fighting in a street would create noise. Noise would bring guards. If the town learned his name, saintesses would close in. Hana asked permission to break the wooden limbs if needed. Toru gave it. She moved first. Her wooden leg cracked against the first plant pot and shattered it. Vines died before they fully formed. She turned, struck another pot, ducked under moving vines, and broke the spacing of Marjorie's formation. The old slave merchant had power, but her method was clumsy now. She needed carriers. She needed plants. She needed time to direct the vines. Hana denied her all of it. More pots broke. Crowds gathered. That was enough. Toru lifted Hana before the cracked wooden leg failed completely. He pushed Mana into his legs and jumped to a roof. Marjorie screamed below, but the street had already become too crowded for clean pursuit. They crossed rooftops and back alleys until they reached the smithy. The new limbs were ready. The metal arm and leg were clean, strong, and heavier than the wooden parts. The smith had built them for combat, not decoration. The leg carried extra weight in the heel and front, turning kicks into weapons. The arm locked into a solid fist and could endure impact. Hana tested them. Her first punch shook a wooden post. Her first kick cracked stone. The smith looked satisfied, though he pretended not to care. Hana thanked him with real respect. Toru tried to speak with the smith more, but the man dismissed him and returned to work. Toru left with regret. He wanted to learn from men like that one day. They went back to the guild. The mood changed the moment they entered. Too many people looked at them. Too many hands moved near weapons. The male clerk avoided Toru's eyes. A woman stepped forward. She was Lucy, the guildmaster of Janus. She explained that a capture request had been accepted under the saintess Prune. The guild had accepted it as the highest priority request in town. Toru was the target. The guild would hand him over. Toru refused before she finished. The refusal sharpened the room. Lucy expected fear and negotiation. She expected a boy to panic inside a building full of armed adventurers. Hana moved before the guild could fully close the trap. Her metal fist struck Lucy in the face. The guildmaster dropped hard. Toru folded his bow into rod form and smashed the nearest adventurer's weapon hand. He did not wait to see who hated him and who only wanted payment. He grabbed Hana in his arms and broke through the entrance. Shouts followed. They escaped onto rooftops again. This time, the town itself turned hostile, and Saintess Prune had already moved. After Marjorie reported that Toru used mana, Prune sent cold wind through Janus to search for his presence. She found the strange mana trace. She also received the wider saintess order from the church. Yaldobo's son had escaped. The boy named Toru carried saintess appointment. Whoever captured him could demand one great wish. Prune and Marjorie made a private agreement. Prune wanted authority. Marjorie wanted profit and revenge. Neither wanted another saintess to claim Toru first. The guild capture request was bait. The street attack was pressure. The rooftops were left open on purpose. Prune believed a hunted boy would run for the wall. She was right. Toru and Hana recovered their belongings from the inn and moved through hidden routes toward the outer wall. Toru used Hawkeye to avoid patrols. Hana watched the streets below and corrected his route when crowds shifted strangely. Still, the trap had already been built. They cleared the wall with mana-enhanced legs. The moment they landed outside, a cutting wind passed through the place where Toru's neck had been. Hana hit him from the side and knocked him out of the line. They rolled across the ground. Prune stood ahead with her pipe in hand. Marjorie waited nearby with fresh plant carriers. Lucy stood with several adventurers, her face swollen and anger barely controlled. They had been surrounded before they reached freedom. Prune presented herself as the ruler of Janus and the saintess of cold wind. She no longer treated Toru like a filthy runaway. She called him valuable. She called him Yaldobo's son, a priceless asset. She called him the hope of the saintesses. Then she held out a hand and offered him a place beside her. Toru looked at her for a second. Then 15 years of disgust rose all at once. For the first time in his life, he openly rejected a saintess and made it clear that he wanted nothing to do with saintesses, their hope, or their future. It felt better than he expected. For one clean moment, his chest felt light. Prune's gentle mask vanished. The fight began. Lucy's adventurers rushed Hana first. Hana met them head on. The new metal limbs changed everything. A spear came in fast. Hana slipped beside it and drove her fist upward. The attacker dropped. A sword came from the side. Hana answered with a kick that sent the woman rolling across the ground. Lucy entered next. Her body was wrapped in close combat magic. Her fists carried pressure strong enough to break bone. She was not weak. She had only underestimated Hana once. She did not make that mistake again. The two clashed. Toru moved toward Prune and Marjorie. Marjorie's plant carriers spread out. Vines shot from several pots at once. Prune's cold wind moved between them, bending Toru's path and slowing his fingers. Toru saw the problem. The carriers were men, not enemies by heart, probably paid, forced, or used because Marjorie needed hands. His first hesitation cost him. Cold wind wrapped his wrist. Vines almost caught his leg. Prune's magic bit into his skin and made his hand clumsy. Saber's old lesson returned. A hunter who spared the wrong thing at the wrong moment died. Toru apologized inside his mind and struck the carriers down without killing them. He broke pots first, then wrists, then knees. He used the rod form of his bow and moved through them in a short, brutal line. Marjorie's attack pattern broke apart. Prune tried to bend his arrows with wind. Toru expected it. He fired at the ground instead. The arrowhead struck a large stone near Prune and burst. It was one of Saber's special designs. The blast did not need to hit Prune directly. Stone fragments carried the attack through the space her wind had not protected. Prune was thrown back. Marjorie looked toward her for a single second. Toru vanished under an abandoned cart. Hawkeye gave him the angle. He shot from the shadow. The arrow destroyed Marjorie's knee and dropped her to the ground. Her vines wrapped the wound by instinct, but she could no longer command the field with confidence. Prune forced herself up. Marjorie screamed through pain. Their true thoughts spilled out after that. Neither cared about Toru's life. Neither cared about Yaldobo's will. Prune wanted the wish and the power it could bring. Marjorie wanted money, status, and revenge for losing her arms. Both believed a man existed to be used if a saintess found value in him. Something inside Toru answered. A heavy pressure spread from him. His eyes shifted into rainbow light. Prune and Marjorie both stopped. It was not normal mana. It was not saintess magic. It felt like judgment from something older than their titles. He warned them, without shouting. If they kept treating him as a tool, he would kill them. Neither answered. Nearby, Lucy fell. Hana stood over her with her metal fists marked from impact. Lucy still breathed, but her arms hung useless, and her pride had been beaten worse than her body. Hana calmly picked up their dropped belongings. Toru gave the fallen saintesses one last look, then turned away. He and Hana left Yanus behind. Only when the town disappeared behind trees did Toru slow down. His anger did not fade quickly. He cursed the saintess system. He cursed Yanus. He cursed how every road seemed to lead back to women with titles trying to own him. He had escaped the village, but the village had become the shape of the world. Hana asked why they were chasing him so hard. Toru told her everything. He told her about the saintess village, his childhood friends, the hunger, the training with Saber, the ceremony, Yaldobo's likely reveal, his own escape. Hana finally understood why he reacted so strongly to men. He had not grown up lonely in a normal sense. He had grown up as the only boy in a place that hated his existence. The mine was not only a job to him, it was proof that he could live beside others like himself. She gave him one piece of knowledge that changed his direction. North of the border lay the Barbatos Empire. It was ruled by a male emperor. It had fewer saintesses than Alexandros, but its technology, army, and industry were strong. Men held real positions there. Other races lived more openly there. Some saintesses even chose to live under Barbatos rule. To Toru, the empire sounded impossible. A land ruled by men. A land outside the full reach of the saintess village. His dream shifted north with new force. Hana's revenge would wait. Her family wandered, so chasing blindly would waste time. The smarter path was to gain rank, information, money, and allies first. Barbatos offered a better chance for all of that, so they avoided main roads. Toru used Hawkeye to read distant movement. Hana used smell, sound, and instinct to find hidden paths and safer camps. They moved like fugitives at first, then more like partners. Toru began to trust her judgment. Hana began to act before asking permission. That was progress. 10 days later, the border town came into view. Land already felt different. Men walked with more life in their steps. Workers shouted, without lowering their heads each time a woman passed. Beast folk and other races moved openly. Toru stared at it for a long time. Beyond that town was Barbados. Beyond Barbados were mining regions. For the first time, the dream did not look like a picture in an old book. It looked like a road. Toru relaxed too soon. A familiar gaze touched him from the street ahead. His body knew it before his mind accepted it. Lightning danced over a hand. Cold mist curled near the ground. Wind shifted around a familiar stance. A bitter herbal smell reached him. Ellie stood in the road. Noelle stood beside her. Sylphie and Astral stood with them. Saren waited at the front. Olive stood near her. More than 20 saintesses had spread through the area, sealing the paths out. The past had reached the border before him. They had not come by accident. Saren had chosen the place well. The road was wide enough for saintesses to spread out. The buildings blocked easy escape. The border guards were absent. That meant Saren had either paid or threatened someone, or used village authority to clear the street. Toru understood the trap in one glance. His body still failed him. His breath shortened. His hands became cold. The old shed returned in his mind. The storage smell. The thin blanket. Saren raised one hand toward him. Her face looked calm and almost kind. That was the most disgusting part. For 1 second, the child inside Toru almost obeyed. His body remembered years of lowering his head before his mind could reject it. Hana grabbed his hand. She did not pull him behind her. She held him in place. Her grip was hard enough to hurt. That pain helped. Toru looked past Saren and saw the road beyond the town. He saw carts loaded with ore, men carrying tools. The dream from the old book was no longer a picture. It was ahead of him. He steadied himself. He refused to return. He wanted a life that did not belong to saintesses. He wanted to move forward even if the whole village stood behind him with chains. Saren's false kindness broke at once. Her face twisted into the same ugliness he knew. She called him ungrateful. She claimed the village had kept him alive. She claimed his life had value only because saintesses had allowed it to continue. She treated his escape like theft, Toru raised the folded bow in his hand. Hana stood beside him with metal fists ready. The numbers were terrible, 2 against more than 20. Saren knew it too. She looked satisfied. She believed the road had ended before Toru reached the place he wanted. Fire changed that. A wall of red flame rose across the street and cut through the saintess formation. The fire did not touch Toru or Hana. It curled around them like a shield. Saber landed in front of them. Her sword burned in one hand. Her red hair moved in the heat. She looked thinner than before, but her presence made every saintess step back. Toru understood at once that she had followed him. Saber had given him the map, so she knew the route. She had also stayed behind to slow the saintesses who chased from the village. The road behind him had been safer because she had made it safer. She had been protecting his escape from the start. Saren's hatred deepened when she saw her. Saber did not look at Saren first. She looked at Toru. She saw that he had reached the border and that he had refused to kneel. That was enough for her. Then she faced Saren. This was not only about Toru's escape. This was about Orlean's final prayer. It was about the promise Saren had twisted for 15 years. It was about the child who had been kept alive but never protected. Saren ordered the others to kill Saber and Hana. Toru was to be kept alive, but only barely. The weaker saintesses attacked first. They were village women who had joined the hunt for reward. Many had never fought a true battle. They had magic, pride, and greed. That was not the same as skill. Saber moved. Her sword cut through the first line with fire. She did not waste motion. She did not chase dramatic kills. She broke arms, burned legs, split weapons, and dropped enemies before they understood the distance. 5 saintesses fell in seconds. The rest slowed. The name Saber still carried fear. Some of the older women remembered what she had once been. She had not been only a criminal. She had once stood at the top of Alexandro's combat power. She had been the blade other saintesses feared. Saren did not let fear spread. Olive moved to the center of the formation. She touched Ellie, Noelle, Sylphie, and Astral one by one. Her power linked their thoughts. From that moment, they no longer needed to shout or look at each other. Olive could guide them through timing, distance, and openings. That made them far more dangerous. Toru felt the change immediately. The 4 girls did not move like children anymore. Ellie came first. She no longer threw lightning for fun. Her lightning wrapped around her whole body and pushed her forward with violent speed. Toru fired at her arm, but she bent the arrow aside with a burst of electric force. Metal twisted offline before it reached her. Sylphie cut in from the side. Her wind struck the folded bow before Toru could reset his aim. The blow did not knock it away fully, but it broke his rhythm. Noelle attacked from behind with cold mist. It stole heat from his fingers and slowed his grip. Astral changed the ground under his foot. Soil softened, then hardened around his heel. It was only a small trap, but it stopped him for half a breath. That was all Ellie needed. She reached him. Lightning filled his vision. Toru saw the strike. Hawkeye read it. His body could have moved. His mind froze. Ellie's smile brought back the shed. It brought back every morning he had tried to stand, while his body still twitched from her attack. For a moment, he was not 15. He was 8 again, small, hungry, and trapped. Hana broke the moment. She struck Ellie from the side with a metal kick and forced her back. Toru's breath returned. Hana did not scold him gently. She pulled him back into the present by standing between him and the old fear. Saber's voice reached him from the other side of the battle as well. It was harsh, but it carried the same meaning. The past could scare him. It could not be allowed to command him. Toru looked around and saw the field clearly again. Saber had already crushed the weaker saintesses. Hana had driven back 2 attackers near Lucy's level. The battle had narrowed to the real enemies. Saren removed her outer robe. The bent old woman vanished. Her back straightened. Her arms swelled until she looked like an old war monster rather than a village chief. She had once been called the Invincible Saintess. That name had not come from politics. It had come from bodies broken under her fists. Saber stepped toward her. The 2 women had known each other long before Toru was born. Saber, Olive, and Orlean had once been close. Saren had ruled above them. That old past now stood on the street like another battlefield. Saber accused Saren of twisting Orlean's dying wish for her child. Saren placed Orlean's death back on Saber. She was the one who killed her. Saber accepted that guilt without defense. That made Toru look at her for one short moment. He did not understand yet, but something inside him tightened. Saren attacked. Her first punch cracked the street. Saber avoided the center of it and cut along Saren's arm with flame. Saren did not care about burns. She pushed through them with raw force. Saber had speed, skill, and fire. Saren had weight, toughness, and brutal strength. If Saren hit cleanly, Saber would break. If Saber kept moving, Saren would burn down piece by piece. The fight became a storm. Toru wanted to help, but the 4 girls denied him space. Ellie pressed him with lightning. Sylphie cut off escape routes with wind. Noelle shaped the air into cold walls. Astral changed stone to ruin his footing. Olive stood behind them and guided every move. That was the real danger. Each girl alone had habits. Together under Olive's control, those habits covered each other. Toru changed his method. He stopped trying to win the center. He shot at lamps, wall corners, carts, roof tiles, and metal signs. Each shot created a new angle. Broken wood fell, sparks scattered. Hawkeye turned the street into a web of small chances. For a moment, it worked. Sylphie had to dodge falling debris. Noelle blocked stone fragments. Astral shifted ground to protect Ellie. Olive had to adjust too many pieces at once. Toru slipped away from the center and tried to reach higher ground. Ellie saw it. Her expression changed. Something uglier took over. She did not want the church to have him. She did not want Prune, Saren, or Noelle to decide his use. She wanted the old relationship back, and if that was impossible, she wanted no one else to stand beside him. Hana became her target. The four girls shifted together. Sylphie struck first and broke through Hana's guard with a wind-loaded kick to the stomach. Noelle locked Hana's feet to the ground with ice. Astral formed iron from the broken ground with her magic. Ellie drove 2 iron spears through Hana's back. Toru saw the blood. The world narrowed. His careful distance vanished. He rushed forward. That was what Olive wanted. Astral shaped more iron under his path. Spears rose from the ground, aimed at his chest, throat, and stomach. Saber saw it from across the field. Saren's fist was already coming at her. Saber made a choice in less than a heartbeat. She did not fully avoid Saren. She let the blow strike her sword and body at an angle. The impact threw her across the battlefield, exactly where Toru was about to die. The iron spears pierced Saber instead. They tore through her body and pinned her in front of him. Toru stopped. Noelle used the opening. An ice spear shot toward Toru's back. Hana moved, despite the iron through her body. She pulled herself free enough to intercept the ice. The spear went through her instead. Saber raised one injured hand. Fire erupted around Toru, Hana, and herself. The wall cut them off from Saren and the others. The battlefield became red and silent. Saber fell to her knees. Toru caught her before she hit the ground. He saw the wounds and understood before she explained. They were too deep, too many. Even her mana could not close them fast enough. Hana was still breathing. Her injuries were terrible, but Saber believed she could survive if Toru acted soon. Saber could not, so she gave Toru the truth she had hidden. She had been Orlean's closest friend. On the night Toru was born, Saren had ordered her to kill him. Saber had hesitated, but not enough. Orlean had forced the outcome by making Saber strike her instead. The final prayer had then bound Saber to protect the child. Saber had kept Toru alive because of that command. But the 7 years in the forest had become more than duty. At first, she trained him out of guilt. Then she trained him because Orlean had loved him. Later, she trained him because she wanted to see the boy reach the ridiculous little dream that had kept him alive. She had never told him because she feared the truth would turn him against her. Toru held her carefully. His mind shook, but not with hatred. The woman in his arms had killed his mother. That truth was terrible, but the same woman had also found him in the forest. She had fed him when he was starving. She had treated his wounds. She had trained him until escape became possible. She had carried guilt without asking him to forgive it. Toru did not erase her sin. She had been the closest thing to a mother after Orlean died. He placed a gentle kiss on her forehead. Saber weakly complained that a kiss like that should be saved for the woman he truly loved. Even then, she still sounded like herself. Toru answered through tears. He told her that Orlean would smile when they met again. He asked Saber to stay with Orlean and watch his dream from there. Saber's face softened. Her body lost strength. Toru lowered her to the ground as her breathing stopped. The firewall was the only thing moving. Toru looked at Hana next. She was still alive, but barely. Too many injuries spread beneath her. The iron had torn through her back. The ice had pierced her side. Her metal limbs lay twisted. The girl who had finally found a reason to live was being pulled toward death because she had stood beside him. Something inside Toru became clear. His whole life, he had treated his strange power like another chain. The village wanted it. The church wanted it. The kingdom wanted it. He had rejected it because he rejected them. But power was not only what others wanted from him, it was also what he could choose. He remembered the strange feeling from his training with Saber. His mana did not only see bodies, it judged compatibility. It searched for a shape. It asked whether the person before him could carry a miracle. Hana could. She had lost her limbs and still stood. She had been treated as property and still kept revenge alive. She had not asked him to save her forever. She had asked for a place to fight from. Toru placed one hand on her cheek. The rainbow light in his eyes deepened. He used his power, the saintess appointment. The power did not feel like casting a spell. It felt like opening a gate inside himself and choosing who had the right to walk through it. It needed will, bond, and contact. It needed Toru to accept the result, with no retreat. He kissed Hana. It was brief and desperate. It was the clearest contact his power demanded at the edge of death. The authority answered. Light moved from Toru into Hana. Her body burned with new life. The holes through her back closed. The ice wound vanished. The old scars along her missing limbs split open with heat, then rebuilt from the inside. Bone formed. Muscle followed. Skin covered it. Fingers opened. A real leg pushed against the ground. Hana stared at her restored hands. Her breathing changed. For years, her body had been a cage of absence. Now, everything was there. Not repaired with metal or wood, but restored. The firewall began to fall. Outside, Saren and the others waited. Ellie tried to step forward first. Noelle attacked before the flames fully cleared. Ice struck Hana's arm and shattered it. Astral pinned one of Hana's new legs with iron. Sylphie rushed in and split Hana's side with a wind-enhanced strike. The wounds looked fatal, but they closed, bone rebuilt, skin sealed. The shattered arm restored itself before the broken pieces hit the ground. Saren understood the danger first. Hana had awakened as a saintess. Her miracle was regeneration, but it was not ordinary healing. It did not only close wounds, it restored the body to its complete state. Toru stood behind her with his bow raised. Hana stood in front of him, with both real hands flexing slowly. Toru looked past her at Saren, Olive, Ellie, Noelle, Sylphie, and Astral. The past still stood there, but now the future had teeth. Saren did not panic for long. She saw the truth quickly. Toru had not become unbeatable. His power had only appointed Hana as a saintess. Hana had gained a miracle, but she had no years of saintess training. She had power without practice. That was how Saren judged it. Olive judged the field next. Her mind link connected everyone. Through that link, she controlled their timing. Ellie and Sylphie would pressure the front. Noelle and Astral would control movement from the sides. Saren would strike whenever Hana's regeneration slowed. Olive would keep reading the whole battlefield. It was a good plan. It only had one mistake. They still thought Hana was the only threat they could see. Toru trusted Hana to hold the center. Hana understood without needing more. She raised one leg and struck the ground. The impact cracked the street. Stone split. Dirt and dust burst into the air. The whole area vanished inside a brown cloud. For 1 second, every saintess lost sight of Toru. Sylphie cleared the dust with wind. When the air opened again, Hana stood alone. Toru was gone. Olive read the traces on the street and tried to follow his movement. She found the first path. It led toward a roof. Ellie fired lightning there. No one was there. Olive found the second path. It led behind a broken cart. Noelle froze it solid. No one was there either. Only then did Olive understand. Toru had left false traces. He had used the dust, broken stone, arrow fragments, and his own blood from earlier wounds to create several paths at once. Olive's power could read traces, but it still needed truth inside them. Toru had filled the field with too many half-truths. Saber had trained him for this. A hunter did not only hide his body, he hid the story of where his body had gone. Hana moved before Olive could correct the others. Sylphie came first. She wrapped wind around her body and moved in sharp, broken lines. Her steps split into false paths. Her speed had improved since the village. To normal eyes, she looked like several attackers closing at once. Hana watched once. Her fist moved sideways. The real Sylphie folded around the hit and flew across the broken street. Hana had not followed the image. She had followed the wind pressure. Sylphie rose with blood in her mouth and shock in her eyes. For years, she had used Toru as a practice dummy. Now someone had read her best movement after seeing it once. Saren attacked next. She came in low and fast, using her huge body like a battering ram. Ellie followed behind her and gathered lightning into a thin spear. The two attacks were timed well. If Hana avoided Saren, Ellie would strike her open side. If she blocked Ellie, Saren would crush her. Hana chose neither. She stepped toward Saren. Saren's fist struck her shoulder and broke bone. The broken shoulder healed before Saren pulled her arm back. Hana caught Saren's wrist with one hand. For the first time, Saren's strength stopped moving. The old chief's face changed. Hana drove a punch into Saren's chest. The blow did not send Saren flying. It passed through her body as force. Her back arched. Her breath left her. Saren staggered, but did not fall. She was still the invincible saintess. That made her dangerous. Astral moved while Hana was locked with Saren. The ground under Hana turned to soft mud. Iron needles rose from inside it. Noelle added ice above the mud so Hana's feet would slide if she jumped. Ellie gathered lightning again. Sylphie attacked from the blind side. Olive's control was sharp. For a short time, Hana was pushed back. Her body healed everything, but healing did not remove pressure. If her arms broke, she lost one beat. If her leg was pinned, she lost one step. If ice cut her vision, she had to clear it. The enemy used those tiny delays well. Toru watched from hiding. He did not waste arrows. A normal shot would only reveal him. So Toru waited for the one moment none of them could cover. Hana gave him that moment. She stopped pretending to be only a newly awakened saintess. Her body changed. Her pulse became loud enough for the others to hear. Veins rose along her arms and neck. Her eyes turned deep red. Her fingers lengthened. Her muscles tightened. Her hair moved like a living thing. Saren recognized it. Long ago, when she was still feared on battlefields, she had faced one warrior from a forbidden clan. That clan did not fight like knights, mages, or saintesses. They changed their own bodies. Bone, muscle, hair, blood, organs, and skin could become weapons. They were assassins, hunters, and body monsters shaped through generations. Saintesses hated facing them. Saren had nearly died against one. Hana came from that bloodline. Her family had not cut her apart because she was weak. They had done it because they feared what she could become. The forbidden state normally destroyed the user from inside. The heart overworked, muscles tore, blood burned, organs failed. Every second stole life. Hana now had regeneration. Her body broke and rebuilt at the same time. That made the forbidden state stable. That made her impossible. Sylphie attacked first, because fear made her angry. Hana did not dodge. Her hand changed into a claw and cut across Sylphie's body with perfect control. The wound was deep enough to drop her, but not enough to kill her. Sylphie hit the ground and tried to rise. Hana shattered her elbow with a kick, then her wrist, then her shoulder. Sylphie's screams cut through the street. Hana did not look excited. She looked focused. Every strike had a purpose. Years of stolen limbs had not made her sloppy. They had made her exact. Astral tried to attack from behind. Hana's hair moved first. Several strands hardened into thin red needles and struck Astral's wrist, throat, and knee. Not killing points, stopping points. Astral's spell collapsed before it formed. Hana reached her in one step and drove her face into the ground. Astral stopped moving. Noelle backed away. For the first time, cold fear showed clearly on her face. She sent ice spears from every direction. Hana walked through them. Spears pierced her arms, legs, and shoulder. Each wound closed around the ice and crushed it out. Hana reached Noelle. Her fingers became short blades. She cut Noelle again and again. Every wound was placed to hurt and scar without killing. Noelle's ice lost shape. Her voice broke. The girl who once enjoyed watching Toru freeze now shook under a pain she could not control. Saren roared and charged. Her body still had power. Her pride still refused defeat. She reached Hana with both fists raised. That was when Toru fired. The arrow struck Saren's right hand. Saren looked toward the line of the shot. That was the trap. The arrow exploded. The blast took her arm at the shoulder and threw her balance open. Hana stepped in and struck her chest again. This time, Saren fell. The invincible saintess hit the ground and did not rise. Olive's mind link cracked. Fear spread through the remaining girls without her control holding them steady. Ellie and Olive were the only ones still able to think clearly. They chose surrender. They bowed low. They promised the village would stop chasing him. They said Toru could leave if he spared them. They placed all blame on Saren, on the church, on fear, on misunderstanding. Toru did not step out. Hana did not believe them either. She turned away just enough to test them. The lie revealed itself at once. Ellie gathered lightning into a huge sphere above her head. Olive gave the command with her mind. They no longer cared about capture. They would rather kill Toru and Hana than lose completely. 2 arrows came from different angles. The first cut away Ellie's arms below the elbows. The second destroyed Olive's legs below the knees. Both attacks landed before the lightning sphere could fall. Ellie collapsed, screaming. Olive fell beside her and lost control of the link completely. Toru finally stepped into view. He had not been on the roof. He had not been behind the cart. He had hidden under the broken edge of the street, inside a drainage gap made when Hana cracked the ground. From there, he had watched through water, metal, and tiny reflection lines. Olive had searched where a normal fighter would hide. Toru had hidden where a hunter would wait. He looked at Ellie. The girl who once called him her toy now had no hands to hold lightning. He looked at Olive. The woman who read every trace now could not even stand over him. He looked at Saren. The village chief who had built his cage lay broken in the street. The old fear inside him did not vanish completely. It became smaller. That was enough. Toru did not kill them. He wanted them to live with the truth. They had been beaten by the boy they had trained themselves to underestimate. Hana returned from the forbidden state slowly. Her body steamed. Her skin repaired small tears. Her breathing stayed rough, but she remained standing. The regeneration kept rebuilding what the technique damaged. Toru checked her first. She was alive. For the first time, her body belonged to her again. The street went quiet. No guards came. No town officials stepped in. Toru understood why. Saren had prepared the area so no one would interfere when she captured him. She had wanted a clean, secret victory. Instead, she had created the perfect place for her own defeat. Toru and Hana took Saber's body. They crossed the border into Barbatos land before anyone else could arrive. The moment Toru stepped fully onto the other side, his legs almost weakened. He had reached it. Not safely, not without loss, but he had reached the land beyond the saintess cage. They climbed a mountain slope near the border before nightfall. Toru chose that place for Saber. They dug the grave together. Hana worked beside him in silence. They laid Saber down. Her face looked calmer than it had in life. Toru placed her sword beside her. They covered the grave and set a large stone at the head. Hana gathered flowers from the slope. Toru poured drink over the grave because Saber had once said warriors deserved at least one good drink after battle. He wished he had shared one with her while she was alive. He stood there until the sky darkened. In his heart, he spoke to both mothers. Orline had given him life. Saber had given him the strength to keep it. He promised that Saber's body would remain there, but her will would travel with him. He would not stop at the border. He would reach the mines. He would live. He would build something that was his. Hana bowed to the grave. She owed Saber too. Without Saber's training, Toru would not have reached the road. Without Toru reaching the road, Hana would still be cargo in a slave wagon or dead beside it. For a moment, the wind sounded like Saber's rough voice. Toru turned. No one was there. He still kept the feeling. After the burial, they returned to the Barbatos side of the border town. Hana thought they should leave at once. More saintesses would come. The church would not stop because Saren failed. The kingdom would not ignore a boy who could create saintesses outside its control. Toru agreed with the danger. He still chose to prepare first. Running without supplies was another kind of stupidity. The Barbados side of town felt different from Alexandros land. It was less polished. Men worked openly, not as background labor hidden behind saintesses. They argued about prices. They owned stalls. They drank in groups. Other races walked without hiding. Beast folk, dwarves, horned people, and others moved through the market. No one stared at them as if their existence was a stain. Hana explained that Barbados was built differently. The empire valued use, skill, and loyalty more than sacred blood. It still had cruelty. It still had nobles and criminals. But saintess birth did not decide everything there. That was enough for Toru. He bought Hana new travel clothes. Her old dress belonged to the road behind them. The new outfit allowed movement, a fitted chest guard, strong short pants, a short overskirt, a flexible jacket. She refused weapons. Her body was the weapon now. She could harden her hands, shape claws, form blades, and use the forbidden state if needed. A normal sword would only slow her down. Toru bought more arrows. The shopkeeper was a man with blackened fingers and a missing ear. Toru watched him explain arrow balance and string care with open focus. Hana had to pull him away before he asked too many questions. They stayed at an inn that night. The room had 2 beds. Toru sat on one and cleaned his bow. Hana sat on the other and kept opening and closing her restored hands. She tried not to look emotional about it, but failed more than once. Toru did not tease her. He understood what it meant to touch freedom and fear losing it. He also understood that the kiss during her appointment sat between them in a strange way. Neither spoke of it for long. The next morning, Hana registered as an adventurer. She could finally press her own finger to the guild plate. The card that came out was plain, but she held it carefully. It was the first official proof that she was not property. She was a person with a name and rank, E rank, like Toru. They stood together before the guild board. The jobs were still simple. Toru stared at the mining-related notices the longest. One job involved carrying supplies to a small test mine outside town. It was low pay, dirty, and simple labor. To Toru, it looked like treasure. He took the notice. Hana watched his face and accepted the choice without complaint. Before leaving the guild, Toru checked the wanted notices. His name was not there yet. That would change. The saintess world had already started moving. Rosa, Seraph, and others would not leave him alone. But for that one morning, the storm had not reached the Barbados Guild board. Toru took the mining supply job. The task was simple. Carry tools, food, and repair parts to a small test mine outside the border town. Help unload everything. Return with the workers before sunset. To most adventurers, it was dull labor. To Toru, it was the first step toward the life he had wanted since childhood. He checked the notice 3 times before handing it in. He still looked afraid someone would take it away. Hana noticed but said nothing. The next morning, they met the work crew near the east gate. Most of them were men. Some were young, some were old, some had scars, bad backs, rough hands. They were not the shining brothers Toru had imagined from the old book. They cursed at heavy boxes. They argued about pay. Toru watched all of it with quiet focus. They were not perfect. That made them feel more real. The foreman was a broad man with gray hair and a broken nose. He looked at Toru's bow, then at Hana, then at their guild cards. He treated them like new workers who had to prove they could carry their own weight. That suited Toru. They left town with 2 wagons. Toru carried more than the job required. One asked if Toru had worked in mines before. Toru said he had only read about them. That answer made a few laugh. Toru accepted it. A joke that did not come with lightning felt harmless. Hana walked beside the wagon with steady eyes. Then Toru saw the mine. It was a dark opening in a hill. Men moved in and out, carrying equipment. A few women worked there too, but not as sacred rulers. One was an engineer. One checked stone samples. They were obeyed because they knew the work, not because they were saintesses. That difference mattered to Toru. The world did not become good just because men were present. Toru unloaded rope, food sacks, and wooden beams. He listened carefully to every instruction. He watched how the workers stacked supplies away from damp stone. One of the lower side tunnels had gone quiet. 2 workers had gone in to check an old support line and had not returned. The foreman prepared a small search group. Toru asked to go too. The foreman refused at first because Toru was only an E-rank adventurer. Toru used Hawkeye from the entrance. He saw movement deep inside. Small beasts, rock rats, but larger than normal. Their claws could cut leather. A swarm had entered from a crack in the lower wall. He also saw one support beam had split. If the workers fought in the wrong place, the tunnel would collapse. Toru explained the danger clearly. The foreman stopped refusing. Toru, Hana, and 3 workers entered with lamps. Toru hated the first few steps and loved them at the same time. The tunnel air was tight. This was the world from his old book, but it was heavier, darker, and more dangerous than the picture had shown. The injured workers were found near the split beam. One had an injured leg. The other had a broken arm. Rock rats circled them from the dark. Hana moved first. Her hands hardened into claws, just long enough to cut through the first beasts. The workers saw enough to fear her. They also saw her protect the injured without hesitation. Toru fired past her. The tunnel gave him little space, so he used short shots and angles. Arrows struck stone, bounced, and hit beasts from the side. He cut off escape paths. The foreman understood the idea and ordered the workers to pull. The beam held long enough for everyone to retreat. The tunnel collapsed behind them after the last worker cleared the entrance. No one died. By evening, the workers shared food outside the mine. It was rough bread, beans, and hot soup. The taste was plain. Everyone ate fast because they were tired. Toru sat among men for the first time without being hidden, mocked, or owned. This time, he only ate slowly and listened. The workers talked about old injuries, taxes, and rumors from deeper in Barbatos. Some complained about saintesses, some complained about their wives. Some laughed at things Toru did not fully understand. Toru held that moment inside himself. The dream had not been wrong. It had only been incomplete. Men were not holy. Mines were not paradise. Work did not erase pain, but a place like this could exist. That was enough. When the job ended, the foreman paid the group and gave Toru a small chipped piece of ore from the collapsed side tunnel. It was worthless as money, but Toru kept it anyway. It was his first ore. He wrapped it in cloth and placed it with the old mining picture. Hana watched him and smiled faintly, while Toru took his first step into Barbatos. Meanwhile, the saintess village fell into silence. The survivors returned broken. Saren's plan had failed so completely that no one could hide it. She had left with saintesses, confidence, and the authority of the village. She returned with ruined girls, missing limbs, and fear. Astral suffered the worst. Hana's strike had damaged her head and spine. Her mind remained awake, but her body no longer obeyed. Everything below her neck became dead weight. She could not feed herself. She could not sit up. The girl who once tested poisons on Toru now stared at the ceiling, while others measured every spoon of water for her. Her cruelty had been cold and curious. Her punishment became stillness. Noelle survived with scars. The cuts Hana placed across her body did not vanish fully. Even healing magic could not erase all of them, because the wounds had been shaped with saintess power and forbidden blood. The deeper wound was fear. Noelle could no longer enjoy cold. When frost formed near her own hands, she remembered Hana walking through ice without slowing. When she closed her eyes, she saw red eyes and body-made blades. When someone touched her from behind, she screamed before knowing who it was. The girl who once enjoyed Toru's fear became ruled by her own. Sylphie healed in body. Her bones were reset. Her joints were restored. Her muscles recovered enough to train again. She tried to return to the yard and strike the practice posts as if nothing had changed. It failed. A saintess approached from behind and called her name. Sylphie dropped into a guard with panic across her face. Her body remembered Hana breaking her piece by piece. Her pride wanted to fight. Her nerves refused. She still had strength. She no longer trusted it. And Saren lost an arm. For most saintesses, that would have been the greatest humiliation. For Saren, the worst injury was memory. Hana's forbidden form dragged an old battlefield back into her mind. In her prime, Saren had once fought one warrior from that same bloodline and almost died. She had buried that fear under decades of authority. At the border, she saw a worse version, a forbidden body with regeneration, a monster created by Toru's choice. For the first time since Orlean's death, Saren accepted a truth she hated. She could not take Toru by force. Olive lost both legs. Her trace-reading magic still worked, but her confidence broke. Olive understood the most painful part. Toru had not won only because of Hana. He had outread her. The boy she had measured like an object had learned to lie to her magic. Ellie lost both arms. That loss destroyed the shape of her life. Her lightning had always begun in her hands. Her punishments, her pride, her games, and her control over Toru had all passed through those fingers. Now they were gone. Healing saved her life, but not her arms. Every bird shadow looked like an arrow. At night, she dreamed of Toru stepping from the broken street with rainbow eyes and a bow in his hand. In the dream, he did not beg or cry. He only looked at her like she had become nothing. That was what broke her most. For years, she had believed Toru was her toy. At the border, he had treated her like a threat to be removed. The house that once ruled Toru's life became a house of fear. Younger saintesses whispered more than before. Some wondered why Yaldobo had given his authority to the cursed boy. Some wondered why Saren had hidden him so badly. No one asked too loudly. Not yet. Rosa received the report from the border. She studied every detail. Toru had crossed into Barbatos. Saber was dead. Hana had become a saintess through his power. Rosa understood the lesson. Sending greedy saintesses after him would only feed his growth, so she changed the hunt. The public order still called for Toru's safe capture. The reward remained, but the true details were restricted. Common saintesses were told only that Yaldobo's son had been misled by traitors and taken toward Barbatos. They were not told how dangerous Hana was. They were not told how badly Saren failed. Rosa shaped the story before Barbatos could. Saber became a traitor who stole the boy. Hana became a monster who corrupted him. Barbatos became the enemy land, hiding divine property. Toru became a lost treasure who had to be recovered for his own good. It was a cleaner story than the truth. The Alexandros Saintess kingdom moved too. Seraph did not want the church to control Toru alone. A boy who could appoint saintesses could change war, politics, marriage, succession, and military balance. If the church gained him, the kingdom would kneel more deeply. If Barbados gained him, Alexandros could face saintesses born from enemies. So Seraph prepared her own agents: diplomats, spies, merchants, mercenaries, and saintesses who knew how to smile while setting traps. Toru's fight had left the village. Now the world would begin. Toru knew none of these movements yet. After the mining supply job, he and Hana returned to the border town with dust on their clothes and pay in their hands. Toru looked happier than Hana had ever seen him. That night, they sat at the inn and planned properly. They could not rush deeper into Barbados without rank or information. They needed to understand how the empire handled saintesses, guilds, and clans. Hana's revenge also needed patience. Her family wandered with a hidden group. They would not be found by anger alone. Toru accepted that. He would work as an adventurer near mining towns. He would learn mining from the ground up. He would build rank. He would gather allies carefully. He would help Hana find her family. And when the saintess world came for him again, he would not only run, he would decide who deserved his power.